Hello, I am back with another video. Well, in the off chance that this is the first video that you're watching from my channel, then hello, I am here with a video. For returning viewers, I am back. It's really important to specify all this. Well, it's Indian Independence Day week slash weekend. Therefore, obviously, there's a lot of communalism going on, and lots of chest thumping, hyper nationalism is also happening. And things are reaching new heights, possibly because the country hasn't come down from its Olympics hype yet. So, if you're not busy watching hashtag patriotic films only, you can check out some of the movies and shows that I have mentioned in this video. If they don't interest you, तो फिर देखते रहिए जो भी आप देख रहे थे या देखने का प्लान कर रहे थे. Before starting though, कुछ disclaimers दे देता हूँ. 1. Sit through the credits. I guess when you're watching a show, you don't really have to sit through the credits of every single episode because the same people have worked on them. Usually, huh? Sometimes पूरा units change हो जाता है for each episode. But when it comes to movies, it's a must. 2. Spoiler alert. Because this might be the first time that you're hearing about a movie or a show here. So if you want to go into any of the titles mentioned in the video, please watch them first and then watch this video. If you're okay with spoilers, please keep watching. 3. Like and share this video, subscribe to the channel, and comments may let me know what you thought of the movies and show that I have talked about in this video, or something that you have watched and you want me to watch. Or if you want to talk about something that's not remotely associated with entertainment, write it down. I'm here to listen to it. 4. Check out the description section. Timestamps for each review are there. आगे जाना है, पीछे जाना है, बीच में रहना है, timestamp पे click करो और मौज करो. 5. I'm talking about all these movies and shows in the order that I watched them. This is not a ranking. Alright? Beginning with the reviews in 3, 2, 1. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. Available in theaters. This movie certainly doesn't play around. You start the movie and bam! A full-on exorcism scene is happening. And it is brutal. Apart from one scene with wonky CGI where Lorraine is hanging off a cliff and Ed rushes to save her, I think The Devil Made Me Do It has the best mix of practical and visual effects. From body horror to shadow play to plain old monsters running at you and the characters, this movie doesn't miss. Also, the franchise has figured out the jump scare. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a traditional jump scare, but it is not delivered as plainly as horror movies usually do. Instead of lowering the volume and then ramping it up along with some grotesque imagery, it uses a sudden decrease in the distance between the scary thing and the person who is going to get scared. And it does a bunch of brilliant in-camera tricks to sell those moments, as well as some other moments where the characters are in a kind of hallucination. Oh, and as far as I know, there isn't a single fake scare. Fake scares are for horror comedies only. Coming to the story itself, yeah, I liked it. I don't want to give away too much, although most of the spoilers are probably out there after its North American release. But yeah, I was on board with the satanist occult stuff. I'm a fan of folk horror because it makes the antagonist flesh and blood. And it makes you wonder what made that person choose this path to gaining something like immortality or infinite power. I think that everyone has already talked about how The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It is an amazing romantic film as well. And I strongly agree with that. The love between Ed and Lorraine really fuels the movie, and it is their bond that urges you to be afraid for them. Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson are simply brilliant, and I hope that they keep doing these movies as long as they can. Talking about romance, I really did believe the bond between Sarah Catherine Hook's Debbie and Ruari O'Connor's Arnie. And yeah, I was rooting for them to make it through. The rest of the cast is amazing as well. Given John Noble's cinematic history, I was surprised he didn't turn out to be a bad guy. I've always had a problem with horror movies trying to justify crime with unholy intervention or demonic possession or curses. And I think that's not going anywhere. However, since the movie looks, sounds, and feels so amazing, I can forgive that. A bit. But genuinely though, the cinematography and camera work is amazing. There are frames that are so gorgeous that they are burnt into my eyeballs. The editing is crisp, as I have mentioned before. The sound design is beautiful. The production design is marvelous. The storytelling is great, visually and narratively. Hey, it has homages to The Shining and The Exorcist. And at the end of the day, it is hellishly engaging. So yeah, I highly recommend watching this. Kuruthi, streaming on Amazon Prime Video. On a technical level, this movie absolutely slaps, especially in terms of the cinematography. Before the narrative completely shifts to Ibru's house, there are all these beautiful shots of the luscious greenery that surrounds the village, which are contrasted by the environmental horrors that the people had witnessed. And it shifts between snorri-cam shots, drone shots, and all your regular shots. When it moves into the house, which is where the major chunk of the movie is set, the cinematography becomes more and more character driven, but without losing its kineticism. There's split diopter shots, dude. I love split diopter shots. Ever since I saw the first Mission Impossible, I was like, yeah, every movie should have split diopter shots because they look extremely sexy. Apart from the story and the themes, which I will talk about in a spoiler free fashion, because it is quite possible that you might react to its twists in a vastly different way than I did, I really don't have any complaints about Kuruthi. The performances are really great. Prithviraj Sukumaran, Shaini Tomchako, and Roshan Matthew depicting the 3 stages of mental stability is incredible. Srinda, Mamukoya, Sagar Surya, and Naslin are fantastic as well. There's some amazing stunt work in the movie, along with some equally amazing practical and visual effects. The production design and set design and costume design look very simple, but as you go deeper and deeper into the movie, you realize that a lot of planning must have gone into it to make it look that good, even in the dark. If I start talking about nighttime sequences and how poorly they are usually done, I'll be here all week. So, instead, I'll just suggest you all to watch the movie. Now, let's come to Kuruthi's story. Yes, in a spoiler free way. I have seen someone say that it's like a microcosm of the country. And I'm sure that a lot of people will make the same observation, because I think that was the intention of the filmmaker. But I disagree with it. In a country with more Hindus than Muslims, how is a film where there are more Muslim characters an apt representation of the country? And I say that because due to this odd ratio, the power dynamics between these two communities that the movie is trying to comment on is totally lost in all the discussions about communal hatred. It does make an effort to show how Hindu radicalists and Muslim radicalists think, but it fails to talk about one becoming radical out of choice and one out of necessity. Instead, it tries to show them as equals, which is an insane oversimplification of the Muslim oppression that has happened and is still happening in India. I think that it works as a thriller. There are some great plot twists and character work, and everything it has to say about hatred is great. However, I think the writers and the director should have brought in a lot of Muslim perspective or read up some more on modern day communalism to make Kuruthi a really solid movie. Marvel's What If, Episode 1, streaming on Disney Plus Hotstar. Yeah, I didn't really feel this one. I didn't really feel good about this one. I did feel something else, and that's discomfort. I'll tell you why. I don't think I'm spoiling anything by saying that this episode explores the alternate scenarios of the stuff that we have already seen in the MCU. So if we have seen Steve Rogers become Captain America, here we see Peggy Carter become Captain Carter. Cool, awesome. After this setup, it shows off some new moments that are unique to Captain Carter, but then it plays out the most memorable moments from Captain America, the first Avenger, sometimes beat by beat and sometimes a little differently. And that's alright, because you want to familiarize the audience with this setting while giving them something new. That's okay. However, it's the pacing that irked me like anything. The episode essentially tries to cram the feature-length movie it is based on into 30 minutes. That is just plain wrong. Hence, there aren't any emotional beats because the show expects you to just pick up the emotional beats and character work done in the feature-length movie and just paste it on top of this episode with spit and gum, thereby making the whole viewing experience jarring and scattershot and eventually a bit hollow in nature. I have a feeling that the rest of the episodes are going to be like this, and that isn't a good sign for the show in general. Sher Shah, streaming on Amazon Prime Video. A whole lot of effort has been put into it. Nice explosions, nice stunt work, nice production design, nice costume design, pretty good editing, neat VFX and special effects and practical effects. That's all the good stuff that I have to say about it. The rest is that same old hyper nationalistic crap that Bollywood has been peddling in the name of the Indian Army. कौन सा देश को धर्म बनाने के बोल रहे हो भाई? कौन सा देश बताओ प्लीज? इंडिया, राइट? देखा है देश की हालत, देखा है। फालतू का जिंगोइज्म झाड़ने आ जाता है। फौज में भर्ती होना ही धर्म है तो जाओ जाके फौज में भर्ती हो जाओ। इधर बैठ के हग रहे हो अबाउट हाउ वी शुड रेस्पेक्ट द नेशन। सरहद पे लड़ने से ठीक होता है देश? हाँ, तो इतनी लड़ाइयां तो लड़के जीत चुके हैं। कभी सोचा है व्हाई द हेल इज इन द कंट्री गेटिंग फिक्स्ड? अभी भी अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट क्यों है? अभी भी हंगर क्यों है? अभी भी इकोनॉमिक डाउनवर्ड ट्रेंड पे क्यों है? व्हाई इज द पुअर गेटिंग पुअरर एंड द रिच गेटिंग रिचर? व्हाई आर माइनॉरिटीज गेटिंग हैरेस्ड एंड डिस्क्रिमिनेटेड अगेंस्ट एंड किल्ड? सोचा है? सोचा है क्यों टैक्स का पैसा किधर जा रहा है और जिन चीजों को डिप्लोमेटिक रूट से फिक्स किया जा सकता है उन्हें नहीं किया जा रहा है? सोचा है? और ये सोचा है कि जितना बार सोचते हो क्यों इंडियन आर्मी को सामने रख दिया जाता है? इंडियन आर्मी खुद का भी सोचा है? साला एक इंसान मुंह खोला था अबाउट द कंडीशन इन द बीएसएफ, क्या हुआ उसका? पता भी है? नहीं पता कैसे होगा? सोचने को जो मना किया गया है। देयर इज अ लाइन इन दिस मूवी, एवरी सोल्जर्स ड्रीम इज टू गो टू अ वॉर। आई एम पैराफ्रेजिंग ऑफ कोर्स। इज दैट ट्रू? अ वॉर इज अ सोल्जर्स ड्रीम. What is the cost of said war? Well, a soldier definitely knows, and it is good that they walk into it despite all that. But do they question whether it is worth it? Even if a character based on a real life person doesn't question whether a war is worth it, does the movie question it? No, and it never will. Because that's how deep seated the bloodlust is. I have seen countless non-Indian movies moving away from this mindless jingoism and questioning the cost of war, PTSD, the horrors of war that's inflicted upon innocents, etc. Show me one Indian film that has covered any of those topics. I'm sure नहीं मिलेगी, क्योंकि इंडिया में इस सब के बारे में कुछ भी सोचना या करना तो नामर्दगी है. It is a sign of weakness, fragility, and above all, it's a sign of humanity. ये सब कैसे दिखा सकते हैं? इधर तो बस रिवेंज रिवेंज रिवेंज, बस वही दिखा सकते हैं. मतलब कभी तो यार कुछ और बना लिया करो. वंस, एटलीस्ट वंस. बॉर्डर ने टेम्पलेट क्रिएट कर दिया था कब? 1997 में. उसी को फॉलो किए जा रहे हो क्या यार? भाई जिस दिन बॉर्डर पे जंग जीत के देश के लोगों को रहने लायक जगह, काम करने लायक नौकरी और बिना डर के जीने लायक हालत हो जाएगी, उस दिन से मैं ये इंडियन आर्मी वाले मूवीज और ब्लाइंड देशभक्ति दोनों में बिलीव करना स्टार्ट कर दूंगा. मेरा प्रॉमिस है, लिख के रख लो. फाइनल सॉल्यूशन अवेलेबल ऑन YouTube. It is a 2-hour plus documentary by Rakesh Sharma centered on everything that happened between the Godhra incident and the BJP's win in Gujarat in 2002. I watched it because I saw someone recommend it on Twitter, and all I can say is please go and watch it and pay attention to the parallels between what happened then and what is happening now before every major election in India. If you don't see the parallels, you need to do some major introspection, like some major introspection. It is not an easy watch, and knowing that the man that the documentary focuses upon is currently in power in India is going to make the viewing experience all the more harder. So a trigger warning is in effect. But despite all that, I urge you to watch it, because your hatred and your vote is their source of power. They will do anything to keep you angry and agitated so that even you cannot reason with yourself, let alone communities that have been oppressed for generations. So please watch the documentary, educate yourself, and try to keep India united instead of breaking it into pieces like the divider in charge, Maut Ka Saudagar. He has many nicknames, wants you to. That's all I got to say. Abhi jaake dekho, please. Beckett, streaming on Netflix. I am a John David Washington fan, so I am a little biased here. Okay, who am I kidding? I am very biased over here. And I love the movie. Washington is incredible in it. I don't think anyone will be surprised at his action/stunt work chops after watching him in Tenet. But if you didn't believe it before, you will start to understand the man's acting range after watching him in Beckett. As the movie is set in Greece and Beckett doesn't know Greek, there are many moments where Washington keeps going without uttering a word. However, through his physicality, his breathing, his eyes, and well, everything he has in his arsenal, he really sells the absolute horror his character is going through. He has these moments where he is just looking at a cat or mumbling to himself in a bathroom. And since the director and the editor lets those scenes breathe, it really externalizes his turmoil without doing too much. Beckett looks beautiful. Please forgive me for not saying the names because I am sure I'll butcher them. But yes, the movie looks fantastic. It has this, and I know this phrase has been used a lot, a pastel color palette. And you'd think that, hey, isn't that used for quirky dramas or comedy dramas or romantic dramas? Yeah, and I think since the movie starts as a romantic drama, they don't change the look very drastically after it becomes a crime thriller in order to subliminally remind us about April's death? Or maybe to contrast the torture that's been inflicted upon Beckett that nobody but him knows about. It could be either of them, or none of them. However, the point still stands that every second in the movie is beautifully framed, colored, and designed. In addition to that, the score is absolutely fantastic. It alters between notes from the horror genre and a 50s or 60s thriller. The editing is crisp and the production design is through the roof. You really just have to see the final set piece to know that. I don't want to say a lot about the plot itself because it is very spoilery. All I will say is that it is almost like Alfred Hitchcock's The Man Who Knew Too Much, but with a little more oomph and style. Also, on a complete side note, is anyone else noticing how Greece is being used as a setting for crime thrillers, especially after all the political, economic, and environmental crisis it has gone through? There was Hitman's wife's bodyguard, and now there's Beckett, and apparently a chunk of Knives Out 2 is set in Greece. Food for thought. Brand new cherry flavor, streaming on Netflix. Holy shit. First of all, I want to say that I am absolutely in love with Rosa Salazar. I'm aware of the fact that horror, fantasy, or comedies don't really fetch a lot of awards. And brand new cherry flavor is kind of an amalgamation of all those genres. So I don't know how many nominations she's going to get, but for me, she's a winner. No doubts about that. She swings for the fences and doesn't miss a beat, and it's fascinating to watch. Seriously, I'm not kidding one bit. There is a lot of weird shit that happens to her. There's a lot of weird shit that Rosa's character does, but she really keeps things very believable and tangible. This is truly one performance that's going to be on my mind for a long time. That's not to say that the rest of the cast wasn't as good. They were excellent as well. Everyone from Catherine Keener to Manny Jacinto, Eric Lange, Jeff Ward, Hannah Livian, Sienna Werber, everyone just knocks it out of the park. And it has a cameo by Patrick Fisher of all people. You know why that's special. Because brand new cherry flavor is basically Mulholland Drive, but on acid and steroids and all kinds of fictional mind-blowing drugs. Actually, that's all I want to spill about the plot of the show. Because if I try to explain the plot and how it is told through the lens of horror, fantasy, and comedy, you're probably going to think that I'm spewing a bunch of bullshit and never watch it. You have to embrace it organically, and I assure you that you're not going to regret it one bit. Because the writers, directors, production designer, costume designers, cinematographer, editor, music composers, special effects supervisors, visual effects supervisors, everyone who has worked on this show have really given their 500% to truly bring this surreal exploration of Los Angeles and the mystical impact it has on people to life. Los Angeles has always been the setting for noir crime thrillers or movies about movies or shows about filmmaking. Only David Lynch swung between those two approaches in Mulholland Drive with an added layer of psychological horror, if I can call it that. Brand new cherry flavor does the same but makes it a fantastical landscape that's kind of weirdly connected to the roots of the people who come from far off places to make their name there. But instead they become LA. If you can survive, good, but the cost might be very high. Wow, yeah, that's another way of summing up this fantastic show that I love. So please watch it on Netflix. And if you know Rosa Salazar, please tell her that I love her. If she would have been on social media, I would have told her myself. Also, I would like Indian filmmakers to explore cities that are the hub of entertainment in this way. Because they have already been explored via mafias and broken dreams. For a change, you know. Bhuj, the Pride of India, streaming on Disney Plus Hotstar. The non-sugar coated way of saying how bad this movie is by saying that it is shit and you should use your time to watch good movies and shows instead of this poorly conceived propaganda film. The sugar coated way of saying how bad this movie is is by saying that you can derive some form of entertainment if you view it as a parody of the hundreds of C, D, E, I don't know what grade of war films that India has produced. Netrikan, streaming on Disney Plus Hotstar. Meh. Sholay, available on Amazon Prime Video. So I actually rewatched this to contribute to Nando V Movies playlist called One Villainous Scene, but that didn't pan out exactly as I planned. You can check out that video though, the link is in the description. Here I am just going to state the obvious and say that yes, Sholay still bloody slaps. It goes hard in every single aspect, every single frame, every single beat. Some of the elements felt problematic because, well, they are problematic. I am talking about the Muslim representation and Viru sexually harassing Basanti in the name of teaching her how to shoot a gun. Apart from that, yeah, the movie is great. Since I was mostly focusing on Amjad Khan and his portrayal of Gabbar, I got to catch a lot of nuances around his character. Like how the framing of his introduction scene puts the guys he's about to kill underneath his feet, thereby showing the power dynamics. And how that whole scene ebbs and flows between tension and relief to really cement what's going on inside the character. Also, have you noticed? I mean, I'm sure you have noticed, but in case you haven't, Gabbar feels violent, but when he's doing something violent, it usually cuts away to the aftermath instead of the action. Two examples are when Gabbar shoots Thakur's grandson and it cuts away to the train arriving at the station, and Gabbar looking intently at an ant on his hand while being told that Ahmed is on his way. As soon as he kills the ant, the scene cuts away to Ahmed's dead body arriving at Ramgarh on a horse. That shows how impactful editing can be if you have put some thought into it. That's all I have to say about Sholay for now. Also, that's all I have for you this week, my fellow fellows. Yes, that's what I have decided to call my viewers, fellow fellows. और इस नामकरण के exchange में please do like and share this video, subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments about the movies and show that I have talked about here or something that you have watched and you want me to watch. Do check out the One Villainous Scene video that I have done and all the videos that are in the One Villainous Scene playlist because they are great. And please remember to stay healthy and stay safe.